So, moving on to our next topic here, let's talk about the coolest consoles to collect for. And let's do
hmm
it in a little 3, 2, 1 fashion here. Give me your first one and tell me why.
All right, so I've kind of mentally ranked these as first. I'll tell you my third pick first, and then or third pick second, then first, like being the one I think is objectively the coolest to collect for. My number three is going to be somewhere on your list. I have no doubt is Game Boy Advance. There's just so much good stuff. There's so many weird variants, and it's kind of like the last, like, I feel like truly retro feeling console, if that makes sense, with the cardboard boxes and everything else. Because I mean, obviously, we've gotten
That's
to
a
the
good
point now
point.
where things in the DVD cases and all that, like, obviously that can still be retro. I mean, GameCube and PS2, people will cry about it if you say it, but those are retro now. They're old enough. But there's something about the cardboard that just makes it feel extra old. And it was the last of its kind. The way that the cartridges are is a little, it's like a mini Super Nintendo with a lot of Super Nintendo ports. First time you ever play a lot of those games portably. If you love JRPGs, there's a massive, massive library of JRPGs to play. You could get hundreds of thousands of hours of entertainment off that system, never play anything else, and you'll never get bored. The platformers are immaculate. There's so many games with amazing pixel art. A lot of companies like Atlas uh, and Natsume put out some really cool, unique stuff on there that you can't play anywhere else. And I don't know, it's just everything about it is just so appealing, and I don't know anyone that doesn't get excited when they go to a game store and they come across complete in box Game Boy Advance, because you find it, but you don't see it just enough to make it exciting whenever you find some good stuff in person.
Yeah, they're just not super common.
I wish I found them more because I'm sick of ordering stuff online and paying for shipping. But I pretty much cleared out all my local game stores with the good stuff over the last couple of years. So,
Right. I did not put Game Boy Advance on my list, Craig.
whoa, that's
Can you
surprising.
believe it?
You are a
my
madman when it comes to Game Boy
answers
Advance.
My answers for this are probably the same as if we were to do a hardest consoles to collect for, because I pretty much think you're cool as heck if you're collecting for difficult consoles.
That's fair.
But my number three is Sega Game Gear. I think that these games are
Mm.
truly rare and difficult to find, like straight up.
Oh yeah.
It could take you years to even find some of these games, and that is stressful. But like, if you have them, you're like the coolest person in the world. If you collect for Game Gear, you're a part of a very small group of people who actually care about the console, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
um, and it's weird because when these truly rare games do pop up, they will sell for ridiculous amounts. And it's like, I've never, like, what, Braveheart's the only Game Gear collector I've ever heard of, and yet somehow there's like, dozens of bids on these rare games. It's like, who else is out there? So it seems like these
Just
people are
two
low key as
people
heck.
arguing.
Finding games in half decent condition is also very difficult. These are
Yeah.
some flimsy boxes, and the seals are ugly, and they're always ugly. And
Yeah, it's rough.
um, so that's another thing. If you have a decent condition copy of these games, like, you have my respect for sure. What's your
No,
number
yeah,
two?
I was
Oh
gonna
yeah,
just
go for it.
say, well, I love the Game Gear, as you know. I kind of got you onto the Game Gear a while ago, I remember. So, like how you
Yes,
got
you
me more
did.
onto the Game Boy Advance. I had a full set of just the cartridges at one point, and then I kind of changed my collecting goals over the years and decided to only collect complete in box for anything, no matter what it was. So I sold all of it off and started from scratch, and now I have like three games. So because you just can't find anything, and if you do find it, it's expensive as hell. So, but I'll always be an advocate that the Game Gear is better than the Game Boy or Game Boy Color. I honestly think that. I think the library is more interesting and fun. The boxes are super cool, and I do love it. It's just it's really really hard to collect for. And it's such a small group of people that are all just fighting each other to the death trying to get all these games. So it's like good luck if you really want to get any of them. It's a it's a
I think
jungle
it's
out
so
there.
cool.
So my second one, surprisingly, is the GameCube. GameCube is my favorite console of all time, and I love it. But there's one other console I think is a little bit cooler to collect for, but GameCube is just my favorite because I think everything about it is iconic. The system itself, the mini discs, the way the cases are, having the label at the bottom instead of the top, like the Xbox and PS2 always made it stick out in a weird way. I think the console library is unmatched. I think it has. The only thing is kind of lacking a little bit is Japanese role playing games, but all the ones that are on there for the most part are fantastic. Skies of Arcadia, Baten Kaitos, anything like that. The Pokemon games are really good. All the platformers are super good. It has a shovelware like any other system, but just in terms of nostalgia, my personal interest in games, the way that I like my games to control and feel. My favorite are from that era. I think the GameCube controller is the most comfortable, and it's just my favorite controller. The way it feels, the way all the buttons are lined up on the controller, everything about it is just my favorite. So when it comes to collecting console variants, all the games, all that, I love looking for all the variants for GameCube. There's new ones that I discover all the time. I have a couple of buddies that are also going for all the variants, and we all kind of fight each other over them. It's kind of like a friendly competition because something will come up for the first time in like 2 years, and we'll be like, "Sucker, I got it, and you didn't because you didn't see it first." And little things like that. But there's just so much to it, and everything about it is just it's my childhood. And I think the games are excellent. I don't know if any other system has a better core library than the GameCube. So even though I don't think it's the coolest console to collect for, it's my personal favorite. So that's why I got to put it at number two.
I love having you as like a father figure when I'm collecting the set. It is nice to have someone who has done it before and everything.
I know all there is to know.
Yeah. All right. Next one for me, TurboGrafx 16 and even the CD. I love the console.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even have one, but I think that it's so cool. I think that it's cool. Its history is cool. They advertised it as something that it wasn't, a 16-bit console. It was trying to compete with the two biggest names in the game at the time, and it just has a rich history. It's very difficult to collect for, more so than, maybe not more so than the Game Gear, but you can go to 10 game stores and half of them won't even have a single game, let alone a console. Like,
Yeah.
not even a copy of Keith Courage or whatever. I think that this is another one that not a lot of people care about. Like in the grand scheme of collectors, I think people are first Nintendo and then Sega, and then somebody might give a dang about NEC over here. But I think it's a really awesome console to collect for. It's the only one that had Hue cards, and they have these jewel cases inside of a cardboard box, and the cardboard boxes are unique. It's a very cool console to collect for.
I know that
And,
one. That one is a mess. I feel bad for turbo collectors. Most people I know that collect for it, they don't even count or consider the outer cardboard boxes just because so many of them are so hard to find. Most people don't even bother with them. They just go for the jewel cases. I don't blame them.
And the last thing I wrote was Magical Chase. Like, that's all I wrote for that one. Like, if you if you even have that, you're probably the coolest person ever. A lot of people can collect the set and not even include Magical Chase because it is leagues and bounds more expensive and just hard to come by than any other game in the set, and that's something unique.
Oh yeah,
Not
it's
every console
insane.
has something like that, you know.
Oh yeah, that game barely exists. It's it's one of those ones that's like up there with like stadium events, and people will laugh at me about Barbie Groom and Glam Pumps on the 3DS because that one people don't realize it now, but that's on that level of rarity in terms of like it just doesn't exist. So
Wow.
it's insanity. But the turbo is really cool. Everything about it. It's just you're right with the cue cards and there's nothing else like it. It's so interesting. The cardboard box over the little CD jewel case is super weird. I like the way the games look with the little color on the spines.
Oh yeah, that too.
Do you know if the colors represent like genres or anything like that? I never looked into what that is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, genres.
That's really cool. That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, I like the style of them. The Turbo Duo is one of the coolest consoles just to ever exist. I've seen a store. There's been 2 times where I live where I've seen them in store. One time it was for $800 complete in box, and that's one of my biggest regrets, was not just charging that to a credit card, because I could have at least doubled my money on that, even if I didn't want to keep it, just because those things are so hard to find. But they are really cool. And then a store I used to work at had one, and I think they sold it for like 12, I think, give or take. And that's probably about what it goes for now, which is insane. But I mean, and then there's the Turbo Express, which is awesome. I would love to have one of those one day. Those things are so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. They're super cool.
I love those. Ah, man. Now I want to collect Turbo and I can't, so. Alright, so ready for my number 1?
I'm ready.
Sega Saturn. I think Sega Saturn is the coolest console to collect for. Personally, I think that it's up there with GameCube's in terms of quality library. It has a lot of junk on there, but the games that are really good are some of the absolute best. And there's something very charming about that era of 3D, where they're kind of figuring it all out still. Like, I love how, if you look at an N64 game, a Sega Saturn game, and a PlayStation 1 game, you can tell which console it belongs to because of how different the polygons kind of were displayed in the way that they had to program the games. Everything about it is super special and unique, and a lot of it, I mean, I love when people make the older games that look like PS1 and Saturn and N64 games. I think that's so fun. But the Saturn, especially if you're a JRPG lover, has some of the best RPGs of all time. There's stuff like Panzer Dragoon Saga, Magic Knight Rayearth, and stuff like that that's just unmatched. There's nothing else like them, and they're so good. Panzer Dragoon Saga is the best game that no one has ever played. And I'm like ready to teach myself how to program and remake it myself just so more people can play it, because I'm such a big advocate for that game. But I love the cases. They're flimsy, of course, which sucks, but they do make really cool display pieces. The big white spines with the kind of the stripes going and the logo on top. I think that that's one of those things where it really sticks out. You see a Saturn game on the shelf and you don't mistake it for anything else.
For sure.
I think the flimsiness also kind of adds to it too, because the fact that it just can not stay in perfect condition super easily also just kind of makes it more cool and collectible. Like, it's exciting when you find a Saturn game and it's in really good condition and you don't have to case swap it. And a lot of those ones had artwork that kind of just waved on its own, unfortunately. So again, it was hard to find some of those games in good condition. So it's really exciting when you do. It probably has one of the most unique library, I'd say, of that generation as well. And there's just something so mysterious and weird about the Saturn. I feel like it's the forgotten era of Sega that most people don't care about or talk about. Even more so than the Master System. I know people that care about that. But I feel like the Saturn is just something that it gets overlooked. A lot of the games are super cool. You can't play them anywhere else because it's, kind of hard to emulate Saturn. It's getting better now, which is good, because there's a lot of games that have been trapped on there for so long. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, if there's any console I think that deserves to have a bunch of games remastered and re-released, it's the Saturn, because that has such a unique quality library that, like, I mean, statistically, based just off of sales numbers, like, less than 10 million people ever got to experience. And a majority of those sales were in Japan, and even a lot of those sales were not towards the best games for the system, of all things. So in terms of like interesting weird history, the way that they display and look, and the uniqueness and quality of the games, especially if you're a Sega head, you're gonna really people that love Sega, I swear they love the history of that company more than any Nintendo fan loves the history of Nintendo or Sony or anything like that. There's just something about old Sega heads that are so dedicated, and it's so interesting and weirdly inspiring just to see how much people care about their stuff. And I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, I've seen and met a lot of people complete sets, but for some reason nothing is cooler to me than a complete Saturn set. Just seeing all that one of a kind history just shoved together on one wall.
I think it's 248 in the set, right?
Somewhere around there. It's not too bad. In Japan, it's like over 1,000. It's ridiculous, but America did not get that many games for it. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's
sure
another
only
interesting
like 2
thing.
million of that 10 million. I'm pretty sure America was only like 2. So it was pretty rough out there for Sega.
Between the Genesis and the Dreamcast, that era between those consoles is so interesting with the 32X, the
I'm telling
CD,
you,
and the Saturn.
yeah, it's like
Um,
weirdly forgotten.
it's fun. Like everyone loves to cover it on YouTube. There's a million videos about Sega's death and everything, and it's so fun to look at. Like you mentioned, everybody loves the history of that company. It's awesome.
It's because they
But
failed
yeah,
so
talk about
spectacularly.
talk about that wall of white, that freaking beautiful man. Anyone with Saturn games, they're just so cool. I have like 2 games, and it's like I need more. They look so good. They take up a
Oh,
weird
I
amount of
know.
space on the shelf. I love it.
Yeah, they're weird size. Sadly enough, I think I only have about 20 Saturn games, but like I have Saga and Ray Earth and like
Oh my
Shining of the
gosh.
Holy Ark and stuff like that. So it's like I don't feel too bad about it because I have a lot of the big boys that I got lucky and got good deals on. But just so everyone can shake their heads at me, one of my biggest regrets was my fiance used to work at a record store and they would get games in sometimes. And somebody traded in 100 Saturn games, give or take about 100, and they priced them all as loose disc because they're not a game store. So everything was basically half the price of what it would already be. And then on top of that, she got 30% off whenever she bought anything there. So I could have gotten all these games for so
Man.
cheap, and I was just like, no, I'll just get the ones I want. And I got like maybe 15 games, and that is probably one of my biggest regrets because I probably would have close to at least half a Saturn set if I would have just gotten them all. But you live and you learn.
It's crazy, man. All right, my number
What's your number
one.
one? Oh wait, can I guess? I think I know what it is.
Tell me.
Neo Geo.
The North American Neo Geo AES, man.
There
If
it is.
you collect this crap, you are on another level, all right? Like you shouldn't even be watching
And
this
you're rich.
video if you collect that crap.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
you're
you're
above
freaking
us.
rich. These games are not just expensive, they are freaking rare. People talk about how expensive games are these days. Like you have no idea how hard it is to be a Neo Geo collector. No one collects for it. Nobody collects for this console, probably because of the price. Like I don't know. I don't have a single game for it. Um, the history of Neo Geo is so interesting. I wish I could be a Neo Geo collector. I wish I could be a TurboGrafx collector. I could, but then I would have to stop collecting literally everything else.
Yeah, you can't focus on anything else. It's too much. It's just too much.
I was at my local retro game store here in Houston about a week or two ago, and this guy had gotten a stack of North American games in Neo Geo games, and I was like, dude, can I just like look at these? Like I had never seen them in person. He was like, yeah, open them from the center, be careful. It was so cool to look at them. They're massive cartridges. Um, I mean, you gotta look into the backstory of this system. The console
Oh, it's
itself
insane.
was about 650 when it released. I looked this up last night. The cartridges cost an average of $250 at launch each, which is absurd. They could be as much as $300. And the console was originally only meant to be a rental exclusive for hotels, bars, what have you. Before, Neo, what is it? SNK was like, hey, maybe we need to sell this to people. They seem interested. But yeah, if you collect for this console, you have all my respect. I talk about Neo Geo being just ridiculous to collect for a lot, but I think it is so so cool.
And just in case you're wondering, 650, and I don't remember what year it came out. I just typed in 1998 to see the conversion. So that's $1,100 for the system in today's
Man, like who
dollars.
bought
Well,
that?
I mean, it was essentially just having like an arcade system in your house with interchangeable cartridges is insane.
Yeah.
They're so cool. I know they got one. One was traded in locally, and I played it with the owner for a while, and it was super fun. And it's a very weird, unique experience because it really does feel like you're playing like from an actual arcade cabinet. It's super bizarre, but those giant ass cartridges, they're just so cool. There's something about them, like they're like the size of like a regular laptop screen. It's ridiculous how big they are. But
I
I
think
bet those 4 or 5 games you held when you went to your local store is probably like 10 grand you were holding in your hands.
right.
So it's
It's
insane.
absurd. He said he wrote this man like multiple checks of thousands of dollars each when he traded them in.
God, that's crazy.
So,
That is crazy.
but he had already sold a lot of them. He only had like 8 left. But the reason like I'm emphasizing North American is because so many people that collect Neo Geo here in the States will collect like foreign only because they're probably a lot cheaper, I would assume.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and for the most part, as far as I know, someone in the comments could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that whatever system you put it in, like if you put it in a North American system, it'll play the North American version and vice versa. Like if you put it in Japanese, it'll play the Japanese. I remember someone telling me that. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But region-wise, most people don't care for play purposes. They just collect it
mhm.
because it's way cheaper.
If that's true, that's cool as heck.
Yeah, so feel free to roast me in the comments if I'm wrong, but somebody told me that when I was talking to them about it once, and I just kind of took their word for it because I was like, that makes sense at least why most people don't care what region it is, because I mean, spending $100 as opposed to $1,000 a game, that adds up.
Speaking of the comments, is there something that you guys would like us to cover on Collective Perspective? Come join the Discord or just drop a comment down below.